Hello and welcome back to another absolutely beautiful day in the woods as a little squirrel wanders on by. The sun, it's honestly so bliss at the moment. Like, even though it's cold because it's winter, the skies are blue, it's like crisp air, you feel fresh when you come outside. But unfortunately I've got rather two annoying, like, it's kind of bad news things to start today. One of which is the car isn't moving again. So Jess tried to drive it off to nursery this morning and got to the other side of the gate and she couldn't put the car in gear. I don't think she stalled it or anything like that, but in my head, the car has got like a stop-start thing on it. So when you stop, it like turns the engine off and so on. I don't know. I don't know anything about cars, but I'm beginning to think that it's something to do with the electrics of the car because, you know, she stopped and then didn't really do it. Like, she didn't stall the car or anything. It just wouldn't go into gear again. So I don't know what's going on with the car. Ultimately, it needs to now be recovered because I can't drive that all the way over to Coventry where the dealership is going to take a look at it. Causes a bit of an issue for Jess with work as well because she can't drive to work. It's like an hour for her to get to work, so it's not like we can just share my car. It's too far for her to go to work and me do the school runs and stuff like that. So we're currently going through a variety of different solutions, but first and foremost, it's getting that car recovered and getting it to the dealership to take a look at. I'm really hoping it doesn't cost too much money, however, because it's like Christmas, worst time of the year for that to break down, because I just don't really have the money to get it fixed right now. And if it could just sit there till the new year, that would be fantastic, but it can't. It needs to be fixed. So yeah, that is problem number one. Problem number two actually comes in form of, as I film this, I have just finished laying down the cement board for the underfloor heating to go on next. But stupid me hadn't placed the order for that, so I'm kind of waiting on delivery. And whilst I'm waiting on delivery, I might as well be doing something else. So I figured I actually have the oak shelves. There's no reason why I can't fit those. But again, that is something that takes time because if we intend on staining them or varnishing them, protecting the wood in general, there's like obviously wait time for those. Much like painting the room, it'll take me a couple of days to actually put that stuff together. And now I've been a little bit pensive about actually doing this, and that is because I am using oak wood, which cost me £150, which if I cock up is a rather expensive cock up. So yeah, I've been putting it off, but like I said, there's no reason for me not to do it. I haven't wanted to do it, which is surprising really because it's woodwork and I should be fine about it. I'm making life a little bit more difficult for myself with what I want to do because I could very well just cut a square, slot it in, job's done. However, I think from an aesthetic perspective, much like the windowsill, it will look nicer if it overhangs a little bit and goes to the side of each. So each one kind of has like a sill effect to it, essentially. It'll come out like maybe here and it'll stop around here as well. So it's got like a bit of a lip on it. I think it'll just finish it much nicer. It's like that little detail which will make it look better. Of course, that means it's not a simple just straight cuts and like get a square or rectangle in this case and just slot it in. It means that I have to essentially cut like a T, if you will, like a T shape, where I need to cut out to this far and then make sure it's exactly the right depth before I cut around this bit here. It's just a little bit more of a finesse job, and I don't necessarily think I have got the best tools to do it, but I do have tools to do it. Now I can cover up any kind of rough cutting or rough edging anyway because all of it is going to be silicone sealed in, even though these shelves will come out later on down the line when I'm finished with like lighting and other bits and bobs in here. I will silicone seal it all, and then if I need to get access to this, I can always cut away the silicone and then gain access to it, but it will give it that finished look. Now I don't necessarily have to use silicone anyway because these aren't wet zones, but yeah, that is my dilemma. On the other hand, I'm also a little concerned about the fact, well, it's not really that concerned about it, but I know factually that every single one of these isn't a perfect square. There's just no way it's not. The measurement at the back will be different to how it is at the front, and the measurement from the side will be different to the... I just know that that's going to be the case. And that'll be due to like a millimeter out from where I put stud work or where the plaster has skimmed it and so on and so forth. So using my laser measure, the back of the shelf is reading 673, right? So now if I take it to the front of the shelf, where, you know, if I get a straight cut and measure that, it's 680. So it's actually 7 mil out. And annoyingly, every time I do this, I get a different measurement. Same applies to each side. On one side, it's 304, and on the other side, it's 293. So it is different on all angles. Now, I'd be tempted, rather than trying to, what's the term? I know what the term is off the top of my head, I just can't think of it. I'd be tempted, rather than trying to match the exact dimensions of the box or the shelf, to just kind of meet whichever one is the smaller number and allow it to slot in. So the shelf itself is square, but it wouldn't sit like perfectly flush at the back and the front on one of the sides. It might have a slight angle on it, which I can then cork over, or like silicone, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, eyeballing it now, it doesn't even look like a straight line. It could be the shadows playing with me, but it does not look like it's exactly a straight line from here to the back there. It looks kind of like bowed, which, as I say, is unsurprising because it's been skimmed, and the plasterer that actually did it did say to me that he struggled to get his trowel in there. He didn't have a small enough trowel, or whatever the case may be. He struggled to get like a really neat finish on it. So yeah, which I can actually, from sitting here, I can actually see it on that side. So what I'm gonna do is, I think I'm just gonna do one at a time and just take my time and just be really patient with it, because it's expensive wood and I don't want to mess it up. I'd be even tempted to go as far as doing a template out of like I don't know if I've got some, I might have some MDF lying around or some plywood, but I'd be tempted to do a template of it first before I do the final cut on the oak wood, so I can at least pop it in there and see how it looks. So I have got literally a scrap piece of pliers, is evident here, and I have drawn out where the shelf is going to go. Now I'm not worrying about the lip because the lip is a little bit easier to handle. I just have to extend it by how many millimeters or centimeters I want the lip to be. But I'm going to cut this out and see if it just slots in. Now if I can get this shelf to slot in and I can see how that looks, I can transfer that to the oak wood. So see how this goes. Now I do have a circular saw with a setup with a track and stuff like that. So for the oak, I probably will use a track or some form of guide. But for the purposes of just testing this, I am literally going to eyeball it and just cut it with my circular saw. Definitely not the straightest cut in the world, but it should be able to tell us if it will fit. And it'll be the first time we've had a proper shelf in here, so it should just slot in, which it does, but unfortunately there is a rather large gap on both sides actually, and it's not flush at the back either. Now I did, when I measured this, I knocked off 2 mil on each side intentionally so I could easily slide it in. 4 mil in total is probably a little bit too much, because as you can see, there is like a significant gap down the side there and there, so I could go even tighter with my cut. On that same token, whilst I also knocked off a couple of mil, I just freehand cut that, so I didn't take into consideration the curve of the blade. For those people who don't know, the curve of the blade is when you're cutting with a circular blade, or a blade of any kind. The curve is how much material you're losing by cutting it. So if I follow the line down the middle, I'm actually losing a little bit of material on both sides of the line because of the curve of the blade. So I have to line up the blade to one side of the line so I get a nice neat cut down the line. I didn't do that. I just freehand cut it just to get one slotted in. And one of the reasons it was worth doing this is because I can now see that if I made my shelf flush with the surface here, what that would look like versus if it had a slight lip on it like that. And straight away, it looks a million times better with a slight lip on it. It doesn't need to be much, but it needs to have a tiny lip on the edge there. Now, obviously, I'm using, like, off the top of my head, that's 9 mil ply, and it doesn't look great, versus what will be 18mm oak wood. So the oak will look nicer and it'll be varnished and so on and so forth. So yeah, it might not look amazing right now, but when I get the actual wood in there, it should look really good. But as I said, I'm really glad I made a template, because you can see there, where I'm like super close to the corner and I am in the corner over there, it actually bows in the middle a little bit. It's actually more there. Now you can do this really neat trick where you get like a washer and a pencil and it will actually draw the line. I can't remember what the term is called. It's like tracing, but it'll basically copy this line here on the wall onto the wood. I could do that, but I am so confident that I would bugger that up in some way, shape or form. I think it's better to leave it like that and then use cork and or silicone to like essentially cover up all of the edging so it looks really neat. After a lot of playing around and like pondering the best thing to do and speaking to Jess and stuff, I am going to go with a 7mm overhang. So it's a very tiny amount of overhang. And I also think, instead of going for like a windowsill look where the wood actually comes out to here, I actually think it looks much better like this. So you get a very tiny lip, which gives, you know, a bit of a shadow, and it gives it like a really clean look, but it doesn't look like a windowsill. I think this will just look better. So with all of my testing and theorizing and measurements drawn out and measured and measured and measured and measured again, I am going to get the oak wood out and cut that down. I can't lie, this piece of wood smells phenomenal. Which might be the weirdest thing ever, but it does. It smells so nice and it looks amazing as well. So, right, let's get the measurements transferred from my random bit of plywood onto here and start cutting it up. All right, as the width of the shelf actually seems to be square after doing all of my niggly measurements, especially with my scrap piece of ply, I can use my larger square to get a really straight edge cut here. So I've set the depth of my blade to be just below the thickness of this, and we're just going to go for it. So I'm going to make sure this time that the curve of my blade is ever so slightly to the side of my line, like so. And then, oh, there's no going back. Definitely tell the difference between cutting this wood, which is much harder than the ply. But that, in theory, should actually fit in. We can try and slot that in now. Got a pretty neat cut on that there. I can actually ever so slightly see my pencil line as well, which means I've nailed that. But yeah, I've got a good blade on there, so. Right, let's try and slot this in. I'm thinking the absolute worst case scenario, I can sand it down, but does this slot in here? Oh my god, it does. Look at that. Right, so that is what the shelf is going to look like, obviously, because it's oak wood, so it's quite nice. I now need to trim the depth, which you can see the line back there, and then use my router to get rid of like this sharp edge. But that is what the shelf will potentially look like. It's going to change colour, obviously, because I need to stain it and so on, but I'm glad that fits, which it's a pretty snug fit, to be fair. The term I was looking for is actually called scribing, where you would scribe the wall to match like the wall. Now, if I was a proper carpenter, or I don't even know what trade does it, but if I was like a professional, then I would scribe it to the wall, and then the unevenness of the wall wouldn't matter because the wood would be perfectly scribed to the wall. As I explained earlier, you can do that with a pencil and like a washer is one way of scribing the wall. But for the purposes of me doing everything myself. I'm literally just gonna cut it in, and then yeah, there's a gap there, but I'll cork it and so on, and I'll fill it all in. So yes, whilst it won't be a professional look, I've done it just like everything else in this bathroom, and it should still look really nice. Right, time for the next cut. Now I don't have, my square won't do this because the line isn't straight from there to there, due to the box that I'm fitting this into. So I've got a straight edge, which is just a fresh piece of timber, which I have clamped down, which shouldn't interfere with my circular saw, no. Now this is where having a track saw would be amazing, but you know, budget doesn't allow and all that. Yeah, there's no going back now, so let's just do it. I'm not entirely sure why. I have measured this multiple times, but for whatever reason, on this side, I'm actually off the line by like a mil, but at this side, I'm like spot on. Don't really know why that is, but for a third and final time, if I slot this in here, it has to go in square, otherwise it won't go in at all, I think. Let this snug fit there. Right. We are 5 mil. And this side, 12 mil. It's quite a difference. I wonder if it's because beginning to question if I've got the board the wrong way around now. That fits. Actually, that fits pretty much spot on. There is something in the corner there that stops it from going all the way back. But that is 8 mil. Is 7 mil. I need to route this so it's not such a sharp edge. Which, to be fair, might not matter too much anyway, because of when I like seal the wood, it probably give it a softer line, a softer edge anyway. But I need to definitely sand this down anyway, just so you can't see the burn marks. It's peculiar how that fits in one way but not the other. Turn it over. It's meant to go in this way. At least that's how I've measured it. It actually struggles to go in this way. Yeah, it doesn't go that way. How odd. I'm not really sure what to say about that, to be honest. It's a little confusing, to say the least, but that is one of 3 shelves temporarily put into place with the right amount of like lip on it, literally 7 mil overhang, and it actually looks really nice. The wood just needs tidying up a little bit. And he's corking in there. I mean, to be fair, once it's corked and I've got a mirror in there, I think it'll look spot on. But yeah, not too bad considering that I could have messed this up and lost a lot of money. I'm quite happy with that. I think there might just be some like bits of plaster or paint which it's getting stuck on, so it's not going completely flush, which is why it's like protruding like by 1 mil on one side and not on the other, because the corner isn't like a square corner, it's like a rounded corner because obviously of painting and so on and so forth. So I think it just needs a little bit of delicate touch to it and it should just slot in nicely. And a tiny bit of sanding to get rid of the burn marks on the front there, and I gave it a very slight softer edge on it as well, so it doesn't like hurt to touch. As I say, because I've just sanded this bit off, I don't think I needed to go as far as using a router on it, but now that it's sanded off, it doesn't hurt to touch. And I think when I obviously coat it all, it's not going to be rough anyway, but that is looking really good. Now, as you've seen the laborious process that is making one of these shelves, I'm not going to film me doing the other two. It kind of seems just very repetitive. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut out, get them all slotted in, and I'll show you what it looks like. And then we will tackle the windowsill. So here we are before oak shelves, and here we are after oak shelves. I actually think they look really good. I am so happy with how this has turned out. Now that I can see them in there, I would be inclined to stain them a little bit, just to darken them to contrast from the wall. But I don't know. I mean, Jess really likes it how it is. So yeah, that's like them just popped on there, not fitted in place or anything like that. I've literally just slotted them in there. I'm obviously going to do the windowsill, and then I'll stain all of the wood at the same time. But as you can tell by not really outside anymore because of the way that the glazed window or the frosted window looks, but it is absolutely pitch black outside right now, so it's getting quite late. I have taken like a lot of time with this just to make sure I don't mess it up. So what I'm thinking, what I might do is before I start that, or not that you would notice, but off camera, I'm going to go stain some offcuts of oak and just get some comparisons, because it's obviously going to take some time to stain and wait and then stain and wait and so on and so forth. And I can test it on the offcuts before I actually commit to something. But yeah, what do you think of my built-in shelves? Like, it's all come together. Like, granted, I haven't even got the back on them yet, like the mirror that I'm going to be putting in there, and it's just painted. I'm so glad I decided to paint the back. Obviously, you can see the screws and stuff, but ultimately it does look all right. Like if I'd had it all plastered properly, like at the back as well, I feel like it'd just be perfectly fine like that. Maybe the mirrors will give it that extra thing, and it also make this room feel a bit bigger as well, which would be nice. But I'm very happy with this. Time to tackle this, which will be much more difficult because it has to come out and extend here because it's a windowsill. Well, I suppose it doesn't actually have to, but yeah, I've got to do a niggly bit down there as well. It's just going to be a bit of a faff, I think. On top of that, to get the oak to sit at the right level with the bath, I need to actually raise the windowsill up by a bit. It just so happens that this piece of plasterboard is exactly the right thickness to do that. However, rather than putting plasterboard down and then fixing this on top of the plasterboard, what I'm going to do is use some OSB, because it will allow me to screw / fix OSB directly into the concrete windowsill, and then that's got like a solid foundation essentially for the oak to then go on top of. The nice thing about that is that I'm gonna have to create like an OSB template, for lack of better terms, that will slot in first before I even touch the oak. So I'm gonna get the measurements, get the OSB cut out and slot it in, and we'll see how it looks. Template OSB baseboard thing should just slot in there nicely. Look at that, beautiful. Oh, there's a gap at the end. It's fine. It's purely there just to raise the level of my oak shelf anyway, which works spot on. It's like a seamless transition from bath to windowsill. I think I nailed that. Now for the fun part. I need to cut my oak, obviously, to fit this bit here. Now I have obviously fitted this in, and I've got some concrete screws in there, and it's got adhesive underneath. It's not going anywhere, probably overkill, but for now it's fixed in place. But yeah, I need to cut my oak out to fit this spot here. Obviously tuck in this little bit there and overlap a little bit here for the windowsill. Now, somewhere along the line, the bath isn't perfectly square to the actual window itself, which is obviously my bad at some point or another. But what that means is that this piece of wood is thin this side and it gets like wider down this end. And if that trajectory continues onto where it comes out of the wall here, this bit that sticks out on the end is going to be much larger than that bit, and you might notice it when you look at it. It might look a little odd. So we're going to have to do a bit of jiggery pokery with that just to make sure it doesn't. But you've seen me do this process a dozen times now, so I'm just going to cut it out and then show you what it looks like when it's slotted in. Going to leave this bit in purely for Star, because I'm sure he'll love to see me using this tool, even though I'm using it incorrectly on the floor, no less. But this is how I'm cutting out the little sill notches. Look at that, beautiful. BEA beautiful. Does it fit though? I'll be honest, I'm feeling very skeptical about whether this will fit there perfectly. So I'm a little nervous about this. I'm 99% positive that it won't, because I cut half of it and then I went and did the school run and I was just like, I feel like I've made a mistake. So I don't think this is going to fit, but all right, let's have a look. Now, the reason I don't think that this is going to fit is because I was rushing to get the cuts done before I left. Which is why when I was on the school run, I was like, I think I've messed this up. But, it's a snug fit, let me tell you that. But I'm, pretty confident I've messed this up. Right, let me put that in there. Right, well, it's a really tight fit, but where I've messed up, I knew I had. Now, as I explained, it's thinner here than it is here. So I knew that this side had to be thicker, but when I went to cut it, I was just like, wow, that's so much bigger than the other side. So I just matched it. So this lip that is extending here is exactly the same as the one over here, and thus has left me a gap right there. Now, otherwise, it fits beautifully. Like, it actually fits spot on. Which I'm very happy about. So it's only a little bit that I need to fix, and fortunately I actually get 2 more chances at this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this end off so it doesn't overlap the wall like a normal windowsill does. So it kind of matches that, and I'm gonna ask Jess if she likes that or if she likes it with the overhang. Now, when I step back, I think because it overlaps in that corner there, I think it needs to match this side and overlap this side. I don't think you're going to notice the fact that it's ever so slightly thicker here than it is over there. So I think it's going to look better if I do overlap it. Plus, that's traditionally what a windowsill does anyway. I don't think it actually matters. I think it's just down to personal preference, to be honest. But either way, I need to cut another piece of wood. So let's get that cut out and get it all fit in. That, I'm telling you, is the snuggest fit ever. To the point where I don't even know how easy it is going to be to get it back out, to stain it and stuff like that. It can't be, it's like so snug, I had to bang it to get it in. And it can't be that snug because wood expands and stuff. So yeah, we're gonna have to trim up a little bit, but windowsill is in. So now we have got oak windowsill and oak shelves. By the way, wide in Alexa, so much better in here. Get some like music in here, which is fantastic. But yeah, there you go. It's like, if I angle it like this, obviously missing a bath panel, it's really, really starting to get there. I can't wait to get this floor down. With the way that these vlogs have laid out, I imagine it's probably gonna be a bit confusing because by the time you watch this vlog, the floor probably already is down. I don't really know how it's all come together, but yeah, I'm glad to get the shelves in. Just as I say, they need to be stained and protected because if they get water on them and stuff like that, they'll leave all kinds of marks. So I think that is probably the next step. Now, obviously none of these shelves are actually like fixed in place, they're just put in place. So I can very easily take them out, with the exception of the windowsill, which is going to take a bit more forceful persuasion to get out. I can just take them out and stain them and stuff like that. If I have time, I'll roll some footage now of what it looks like stained. But as I've mentioned, it does take a long time. It's a long process to stain the wood and stuff like that. So yeah, if I've got time to stain it all and show that footage before this vlog goes out, then I'll slot it in here. But if not, I am going to wrap up the video and say thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It's taken me a lot longer than I anticipated just to make a windowsill and 4 shelves. And it probably, if I was just like making it out of plywood or something, it would not have taken me this long. But because I'm working with oak and a limited amount of it, I'm kind of scared that if I make a mistake, like the first windowsill I did, I only have so many more chances at it before I run out of wood. That windowsill now, there's no going back. I don't have any extra pieces of wood that is long enough to cover the distance of the width of the windowsill. So I would have to buy more, and it was like like I said, 150 pounds worth of wood, and I don't want to waste the money on it, like on me making mistakes. So I'm glad it came together how it did. Like I mentioned, I am going to do some testing on some offcuts of like different stains and see which one we like the most. I honestly think that I don't want it to be dark, and it's probably going to stay as close as possible to what it currently is, because I think it complements the room really nicely. So I don't imagine it's going to change too much from what it currently looks like. Just the windowsill might have to have a bit of a glossy finish on it rather than like a matte one, which would be nicer because it's in a wet zone. So yeah, we will see. But anyways, I want to thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Big shout out to the guys who have become members or gone over to the Patreon to get vlogs early. I really do appreciate that. It's helping more than you realize with all the things that have happened with me, my family, and our lives over the last like 4 or 5 months now, however long it is we've been here. Know that you have all contributed towards us getting in the house, whether that is towards the bathroom, towards our living situation, or you know, anything else. That is, it's all helped tremendously. So thank you so much. That goes to all the people who watch the vlogs, especially to this point, because the longer you watch the video, I think the way it works is the longer you watch the video, the more ads are played, and therefore the more money the video itself actually makes. I don't know. I tried to space the ads out in a nice way so it doesn't feel like it's like constantly in your face. I'm someone who has like YouTube Premium, so I don't really know what that experience is like. To be perfectly honest, I hate adverts, so I tried to keep them to a minimum as possible. But anyways, I'm rabbiting on. Thank you very much again, and I shall catch you guys in the next video where I have no idea. Like I said, I have no idea where this vlog is going. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the next one. Appreciate it. Much love. Bye-bye. And that is because I'm using oak wood. I just need to trim it up a little bit. And what you should do is get a clamp. I don't have one to hand. Let me go get a clamp.